Good morning, everybody. Yesterday, I was watching the debate between Mr. Zizek and Dr. Peterson, and it was a very interesting debate. I'm not quite all the way through it. I found the opening remarks to be a little bit of a miss. I wish maybe they had gotten together beforehand to kind of agree. I know the terms of the debate were capitalism, communism, and happiness, or something. I think that was the three kind of things they were going to discuss. But I think maybe they should have kind of figured out what they wanted to talk about, because there was a lot of agreement in both men's statements. But anyway, I found the debate interesting, so link is in the description. Have a watch for yourself. First story today is the Toronto Star is reporting Trudeau painting Scheer as extremist has risks for PM, says experts. Yes, and anybody with a brain would see the inherent risks in this strategy, but I'll paint it out for you. Here we go. TheStar.com is reporting, quote, Justin Trudeau is framing the next election in stark terms. The Prime Minister told Liberal volunteers and supporters last week the Ontario 21st vote would be, quote, about what kind of country we want to live in and who we want to be. But in the wake of the past 2 months of controversy over the SNC-Lavalin affair, a new, edgier tone has emerged. It isn't all sunshine and light. Trudeau has moved inside and outside the Commons to link Conservative leader Andrew Scheer to white supremacism and the alt-right. Okay, so it's not enough that Justin Trudeau probably broke the law in pressuring his Attorney General. Then when she wouldn't do what he wanted him to do in that giving SNC a deferred prosecution agreement, he replaced her with somebody who would, and then she quit in protest, hit the cabinet, and then was removed from caucus by Trudeau himself for not supporting leadership when they probably broke the law. So weird that now he's saying, yeah, but Andrew Scheer's alt-right. And also, if you want to discount all the shady stuff around SNC and the Trudeau inner circle and Prime Minister's office and Privy Council and all of that stuff, and not to mention the clerk of the Privy Council left and the principal secretary to the Prime Minister left over the SNC affair, what kind of Canada do you want to live in, everyone? I mean, one that Justin Trudeau, the liar, isn't in charge. That's the kind of Canada that I want to live in. But even if you were to discount all of that stuff, let's look at the associations Mr. Trudeau holds. Who's that? Oh, that's Jasper Atwal. He's a known terrorist and attempted murderer. Right. And Guyan Gomeshi, the bondage and S&M guy, right? He experienced things differently, and then it was a big court case, and he got off scot-free. Kevin Spacey's made some very interesting YouTube videos lately, threatening the Queen of England or something. That was last year, but man, that was a weird and creepy video to watch. Kent Hart, I don't know much about Kent Hart, but Peter Daglish, I've heard his name before, and I mean, okay, Justin Trudeau's the Prime Minister, so maybe this is just kind of coincidences, right? A lot of people get pictures with people, like Justin Trudeau maybe doesn't know who the guy on the bottom left is there. I don't know who that guy is, right? But this is true. Justin Trudeau's best friend jailed after international pedophile ring bust. And yeah, okay, this is news punch where mainstream fears to tread. Okay, I get it. Hold on. We'll read this and then I'll show you another source for the same story, because it's talking about the same person. Well, I'll show it to you right now. How's that? The provincial court judge stated in her ruling that although illegal images Christopher Charles Invalidison, sorry if I got that wrong, 43, accessed at home and while working at St. George's School were, quote, very bad, there are more extreme cases. Don't worry about that pedophilia and child pornography. There's way worse out there. So he's a teacher. Yeah, okay, anyway, it's the same person. Okay, so Christopher Charles Invalidison, sorry if I got that wrong, a long-term close friend of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has been found guilty of child pornography charges after being caught directing an international pedophile ring. Invalidison entered guilty pleas in BC Provincial Court in Vancouver to accessing child pornography and possession of child porn. He was also initially charged with 2 counts of importing or distributing child pornography. At the time he was charged, Royal Canadian Mounted Police said 11 members of the pedophile ring in 3 countries, Canada, Australia, and the UK, had also been arrested in their respective countries. Justin Trudeau and Invalidison have been closely linked since their days as roommates at college, and after competing completing their teaching degrees, they were both accepted at West Point Grey Academy, an elitist Vancouver private boarding school. After becoming Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau encouraged Invaldeson to run for political office as a member of the Liberal Party. Invaldeson announced his desire to be the Liberal MP candidate in the district of Vancouver Kingsway and developed a social media pages announcing his plans to run. However, his arrest and subsequent imprisonment on child porn and pedophilia charges have ended any chance Invaldeson had of entering politics, even in Trudeau's Liberal Canada. And here's the Vancouver Sun article, and it also talks about the West Point Grey Academy here, and I'll just read it for you. It says he was caught in 2010 in Valdeson, an international police sting using Facebook. At the time, RCMP said 11 members of the ring had been arrested in Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. Invaldeson had previously taught at another Vancouver private school, West Point Grey Academy, with federal Liberal leadership hopeful Justin Trudeau. This article scrubs the fact that they are friends, and, who knows, but there are other interesting connections for Justin Trudeau all across his administration. It's really interesting. Joshua Boyle is currently in court trying to prove his innocence against his wife, who has moved back to the United States with their 3 children. So it's really interesting to see all of these connections bubbling up, and Justin Trudeau saying, yeah, but Mr. Scheer shares a stage with Faith Goldie, and that's totally makes him a white supremacist, because it doesn't, and he didn't, and he's not. Really not. And I'm not a Mr. Scheer fan. If I had a vote, I would vote for Mr. Bernier. And lucky me, I do have a vote, so that's where it's going. But my point isn't that. My point is smearing somebody with falsehoods doesn't work when you've got this many skeletons in your closet. It's really strange. There's an old phrase about glass houses and throwing stones. You should look it up, Mr. Trudeau. It's very, very tone deaf. Here's another example of people that Justin Trudeau associates with or gives money to. Omar Khadr. And he's on the CBC. The Post-Millennials reporting, quote, CBC talk show invites convicted terrorist Omar Khadr on his Sunday night guest. Yeah. Tout le monde en parle everybody's talking about it, is a big French show. And I always wonder why we don't have English shows like this. We should, and we don't. But here's the English, and this isn't my work. I didn't cut this. Somebody else did, so I'm not going to play it right now. But here's Omar Khadr's part in English, I believe. These are the English-speaking parts. Feel free to watch it. I have not watched it yet. I don't have time yet. But again, glass houses, throwing stones. Look it up, Mr. Trudeau. It's very, very, very apt currently. So again, I said how silly and often talk about how little Justin Trudeau has going into this election cycle. Last election, he had electoral reform and people believed that he would do it. He had, I'm going to personally fix the Phoenix pay system, which got government employees on board. He had marijuana legalization. Of those 3 things, Phoenix pay has been a spectacular failure. Marijuana legalization has actually been driving criminalization if you smoke marijuana, and, well, giving a monopoly over to former police chiefs. Weird. Seems strange. And I don't like how it's been rolled out at all. And the other big electoral initiative he's got this time, we're going to shove a carbon tax down your throat despite what your voters say, because you're wrong. You're wrong. So here's the Globe and Mail reporting, quote, Federal Environment Minister vows to impose carbon price on Alberta if Kenney scraps provincial levy. Federal Environment Minister Catherine McKenna vowed on Wednesday to impose carbon pricing on Alberta should Jason Kenney's United Conservatives make good on a campaign pledge to scrap the provincial levy. Quote, I don't want to speculate on what's going to happen, but we've been clear that it should not be free to pollute anywhere in the country, and we have a backstop should provinces not have a price on pollution, Ms. McKenna said in a telephone interview from Vancouver. I'm going to pause here. Ms. McKenna has overseen feces and sewage being discharged into waterways from British Columbia to the St. Lawrence in Montreal, and it's interesting for her to talk about pollution like this when the reality is, 1, carbon tax does not decrease emissions at all. 2, they have zero plan on what to do with the money. They're saying, we're going to give it back to you, and it's totally not going to make everything more expensive. No, it's not. It is, and it has, and it does. But it doesn't reduce emissions because there isn't another option. I can't choose a car that is not going to create emissions. That is not on the table for most people in Canada, period. So it's a false choice. You get to pay more or, don't use a car. But is that a choice? Because if you don't use a car, well, most people commute. Could you use transit? Yeah, transit would take 3 times as long, 4 times as long, but most people, again, would use a car. So it's false and it doesn't work. And we can have proof that it doesn't work because if you look at BC, who's had a carbon tax instituted since 2008, they have outpaced the rest of Canada without a carbon tax with their carbon emissions, and their carbon tax did not stop that one bit. So very, very strange. Very strange. Back to the article. She said, Ottawa hopes to work with Mr. Kenney, although relations between the federal Liberals and Conservative governments in other provinces have been antagonistic. Yeah, to say the least. Back to the article. Mr. Kenney swept to power Tuesday on a promise to immediately repeal Alberta's carbon tax levy, and he has pledged to sue Ottawa to prevent the federal backstop from taking effect, joining Conservative premiers from Ontario and Saskatchewan who have already challenged the Liberals' climate plan in court ahead of a federal election this fall. The Premier-designate said Wednesday he plans to introduce Bill 1 to scrap the carbon tax with the first sitting of the provincial legislature is convened in the third week of May. And yeah, and that's going to happen, and Justin Trudeau is going to be reduced to, I hope, 0 seats. That's my Easter wish this Easter Monday. 0 seats for the Liberals. This I found interesting, and I'm going to contrast with Justin Trudeau's tweet at the end. All of the Liberal and Democrats in the States started using Easter worshippers. So if you see that trending, that's what this is. Here's Hillary Clinton on the Christchurch church mosque attack first, and she says, quote, "My heart breaks for New Zealand and the global Muslim community. We must continue to fight the perpetuation and normalization of Islamophobia and racism in all its forms. White supremacist terrorists must be condemned by leaders everywhere. Their murderous hatred must be stopped." And in this one, regarding the Sri Lankan attack, she says, quote, "On this holy week for many faiths, we must stand united against hatred and violence. I'm praying for everyone affected by today's horrific attacks on Easter worshippers and travelers in Sri Lanka." Easter worshippers. And people got upset about this. And a lot of people saw a trend, and I'll show you the trend. This is somebody tweeting, quote, "Whoa, this is more widespread than I thought. Dear Christian brothers and sisters, it seems the Democrats are in the process of renaming us to Eastern worshippers." And yeah, here's a bigger version of this chart, but it's Barack Obama, Castro, Republican Dan Kildee, right? Hillary Clinton. I thought that was Pelosi, but it's not. But there's a lot of people who are using this Easter worshippers language, and it's not just those tweets. There's a trend on Twitter as well. 596 new results since I loaded this tab probably half an hour ago. And yeah, it's interesting. It's why not Christians? You can name Muslims, why not Christians? And Justin Trudeau did say Christians. This is his tweet on the subject. He says, "Absolutely horrific news from Sri Lanka. Canada strongly condemns the heinous attack on Christians at churches and hotels. Our hearts and thoughts are with the families and loved ones of those killed and all those injured." And then he's got a statement here as well. But my question is this something we need our politicians to do? On the world stage, do we have to have a statement on every terrorist attack? I don't understand the purpose behind it other than saying, yeah, we stand with the country, but is that not obvious and clear? And it seems like empty words playing to a local crowd. And I know Bernier's made this point before, but this is expected of a leader. If Justin Trudeau didn't have a statement on this, it would be out of the norm. And that's just something I wanted to look at, like really. And I wanted to compare, was he using the Easter worshippers language? And I checked, and him and Freeland and his ministers and stuff are not using that Easter worshipper language. So that's, a good sign in my book. But at the same time, let's take it one step further. Why is this something we expect from our politicians? And is this something that's effective? If it's effective, what is the goal of it? What do we want to accomplish with it? Because is it talking to Sri Lankans? How often in an attack in Canada have you looked up the leader of Sri Lanka and said, has he mentioned this? Because, he really should. We've got some trade with those guys. I don't know, what's the goal of it? What's the purpose? Is it to virtue signal to your own base to say, I care about the world? We're not going to do anything about it, but I care. Or what? I'm not sure. So what's the goal of it? And is it actually fulfilling that goal? I don't know. And if I don't know what the goal is, I can't answer the second question. Thanks for watching, everybody. I know I go off on little tangents and my brain kind of wiggles into weird places, but that's where I go. Thanks for watching. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Some of us are back to work today. Some of us are not. And, well, I try and work every day, but I'm going to try and get a second video out today. But both of my kids are home and everybody's home, so it's still kind of a pretend weekend. So I'm going to try, though. Back to the usual schedule. Thanks for watching. Check out thepeoplespartyofcanada.ca and have a wonderful day.